Yeah, so today our topic is surrender. So
Mm.
Rachel was my acupuncturist. We met at an event outside of DC several years ago, and it was the beginning of a magical relationship and friendship from then, and some healing, lots of healing. We still practice Chinese medicine in Bethesda, Maryland.
Yeah.
And you write these just beautiful articles and newsletters that I still subscribe to, even though I'm on the other side of the world now. And your last newsletter last week is about surrender. And it's so relevant and so well thought out. I mean, you're one of the most mindful people that I know. So I'd love for you to share your insights on how we can surrender right now. And honestly, this is like the scariest topic this is more scary for me than the fear, honesty, shadow. This is the one that I have a tough time with. Like my prayer for years has been how to let go of the how. And so I'm just going to be listening and taking notes.
We're all taking notes all the time on these things, right? I'm like, I know, fear. Vulnerability is freaky. Yeah, surrender can be freaky because we have to then basically own that we're not in charge. That's a terrifying thing.
Right.
For a lot of us. I actually don't know anyone it's not terrifying for, I guess, is it's a big conversation. So where shall we begin? What would be good to, it's huge. It's a huge thing.
It's really big. I think what fear and the shadow and surrender have in common is that it's about the unseen and the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I know logically, okay, if I just embrace that and then I surrender, that it's a lie anyway that we think we have control over anything that happens in life. I mean, you shared kind of 4 steps in your newsletter that I'd love for you to talk about. And then I just want to explore how to take those into a daily practice, because I think if you make it a habit, then it's kind of there for you when you need it the most.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I agree. And I think it's also, maybe it will be helpful for everyone, because I always have to remind myself of this. It's this can happen in small doses multiple times. So it's not it doesn't have to be these swooping, I'm gonna figure out how to give up on the biggest thing I've ever tried to control in my whole life all at one time. It can be little places where we start getting the practice, because it is most of us want to hold the reins. I like being thinking I like pretending I'm in control of my life. Sometimes I think it's real. I'm I am totally in control. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, the only reason I feel so badass about that right now is because I'm doing a great job of sort of holding my responses to things and not overreacting to them. Or maybe I'm overreacting to them, but being really responsible for it. And then I have this perception that I'm in charge. But really the thing that we're in charge of, and I think this is probably maybe in the first part, even before we get to those 4 pieces, is the thing I'm in charge of is just only me, the way I be about my life. That's the only thing I actually get. I get to have some sort of in chargeness about my body in terms of how I treat it, and some in chargeness about how my body responds to things, and my mind, and how I spiritually engage with the world around me. But still, it's just my reactions and responses I'm in charge of. It's not necessarily I may not have control over if I fall off my scooter and injure myself, or if I get if I catch a virus. I don't always get control about that, right? So
right.
So then it's a question of how do I be about that? I think, how do I be about that? And the letting go piece, I think, is step one in getting to the now, how do I want to be about it? Because we could say, oh, I want to be empowered. I want to be kind all the time. I want to yell at my children less, or I don't know, be a marital partner that's, more patient, which I'm saying things that are relevant to my, like, really, these are things I'm after. And the first part is that I have to let go of the thing I thought I had control over in the first place in order to get to the moment where I can then access that kindness or that patience or the new story I'm going to tell myself about the thing I didn't have control over in the first place. So it's letting go so that I can make meaning that I can connect with better.
Wait, yeah, and I want to repeat it because that's good.
Go.
You're letting go as the first step so that you have space to make meaning of like what's going on.
Yeah, and make meaning that serves. I mean, some of us, we jump so quickly to making meaning that doesn't serve because we didn't have an opportunity to let go first. Let go first. There's nothingness there first. Nothingness first. No thingness. Like terrifying.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty scary in itself. And I think that's what like being at home and all of the stillness and all of the silence and all of the space is one of the hardest parts for people that aren't dealing with, like, let's say, bigger things about the illness.
Yeah. Yeah, well, right. And we're noticing, right, everyone, not everyone, a lot of us are finding little ways where we feel like we can control. Oh, if I set us up the right schedule for the day, if we eat the good things, if I get the delivery groceries, then I'm in control of this thing. And it's like, no, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not. So, okay, so how do we do that? So I talked about 4 things that work for me because they're pillars that I can sort of emotionally connect with that then calm my body down. And it might be useful maybe to break down for people when we're about to talk about like humility and compassion and worth and impermanence, and those are concepts, but it's really important that we feel those things in our bodies. So I think like maybe the first thing is, how do I know if I'm letting go, and how do I know if I'm not letting go first? So it's like, okay, do I feel like I'm doing this? I mean, literally, what's everyone's? Mine looks like this, like I'm like, I'll be in the kitchen, like washing the dishes, and I'm like, I can't believe no one put the thing where it's supposed to go. And I'm like rubbing the thing, like pissed off about that, like no one's doing the thing I said that they should do. And so there's it's like you can almost see, even in this, it's like it's the same thing as like what our back looks like when we're like, argh. So mine looks like that. So pretty.
Mine's definitely the shoulders. I feel like this.
Yeah, like and I bet a lot of us don't even realize sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like, how did my shoulders get that close to my ear?
Yes.
When did that occur?
Yes.
What was I doing that was normal for me and I didn't even notice? And, furrowed brow. And another one would be actually for a lot of people, I mean, I'm just going to go there, is like not being able to poop easily, like constipation, elimination stuff, peeing all the time, like can't hold your urine, can't hold your bowels, like those, that digestive release and sort of that body clearing toxin release that sort of has no rhythm is an indication that we're probably doing some version of like that headache.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Well, think about it. Like theoretically, we could hold on to that crap. Or we could be like, I can't even hold on to my crap, and it's just like
right
from either opening.
Yeah. And if it's not in balance, I mean, it's balance, right? So if that's out of whack, then clearly it's coming from an emotion that you're feeling.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. Yeah. And, so not being able to sleep easily would be another one. Lots of really active dreams where we're planning or where we feel like we're out of control. So there's a lot of, first thing I want to say is suppose like trust our bodies, like come back. So there's a lot of this that's going to happen in how am I going to make space to allow myself the safety of letting go and surrendering. And the other part is, well, I can't do that from only the neck up. I have to do that in my whole self. My heart center, our sort of digestive gut knowing, and then our source, like, say the area in like the pelvic bowl. So it's like these like three knowing places. And in our bodies, if we can at least connect to even one of them, just for a moment, that may allow us to sort of dip into this place where then we can say, okay, how can I get compassionate? How can I how can I reconnect with my humility? What about this worth stuff, which we'll talk about, and impermanence? Like, I'm so not cool with that, which is, it's kind of uncomfortable. I actually think compassion is probably, maybe it's the easiest of the four. I don't know. What do you think?
I wouldn't make that conclusion. Self-compassion, right, is what you're talking about? Or are you talking about?
Well, I would say it's usually easier to it's usually eventually easier to find our compassion to something outside of ourselves than.
Yes.
So that's where you need,
right.
Yeah. But it takes both self and external. It's internal and external compassion, I think. So yeah. Okay. Right. I'm trying to think about how to make this like chunk down for everybody. How do we do compassion? So I think the first thing is like, am I being judgmental? That's how we know. That's how I know. Let's say that. Yeah. That's how I know. I'm being judgmental typically means I am not being compassionate. Now, who's that judgment pointed at? Is it, is it here? Is it there? Is it both? But that's the first thing is, am I being judgmental? And I'm not judging judgment. I mean,
so sly, that judgment.
It's so slick. She just sneaks in there. We want to have discernment because discernment keeps us safe on all levels, and it can just kind of turn over into judgment. And usually we know we're in judgment if it doesn't feel clean, right? So a discernment would be, okay, like I'm trying to figure this out with my groceries. This might be a good place, actually. I keep logging in, it seems dumb, but like we're all trying to figure out where to get our food, those of us who are capable of purchasing food, right? And I keep refreshing my screen to see if I could get like into the world of delivery groceries that so many people seem to be able to get into, and I've yet to be able to get into in the entire, I've had one successful curbside pickup in the 6 weeks that we've been doing this. And
you mean like the site just crashes, or
no, there are just no delivery windows available. I think because our food is so populated, and people, I think there are probably people who are much more resourceful than I am, who know like what time of day to log in to get their grocery time. So I found myself being like, who are all the people taking up all the like doing this judgmental thing where I'm like, and then I'm like, I should have woken up an hour earlier. I should have planned this better. So that's not discernment. That's judgment. Discernment is, and I've had to do this where I'm like, it does appear that I'm not able to get a delivery window still for whatever reason. And thank goodness we're healthy enough and capable right now of going and getting our groceries, and I have my masks and we have gloves and we can like do that and hopefully not harm anyone. So maybe this is an opportunity for me to just like do something that's easier for me than someone in another situation, and not worry about getting a delivery and not judge anyone who's gotten them, because I'm really actually glad that a lot of people have not had to go to the store under my moment of frustration and, you know, constantly refreshing my screen. So I just to like, because we have to break that down first, because I think it's easy to not have an observer about that, where we believe our judgments are real and then we can't get to compassion.
Right. Well, I have this thing where I try and define what's real and what's true.
Yeah.
And like true is something like the law of physics or gravity, or like something that can exist like across all time and space in all situations. Like it holds up. And real is something that feels very real, is very real in your environment or your situation. But it could change depending on like your perception of it, the people involved, who's saying it, how they're saying it.
The next breath you take, even. Yeah. Right. Reality moves really quickly. And everyone's reality, I mean, my reality in one moment and somebody else's don't always match. Yeah. So I think that's a good distinction. And I love that question. Like, what is true and what is real? And that's the thing. It's like, is it true that I should be able to have my groceries delivered and that other people are taking up too many slots? No, that is not true. That's just what's happening.
Right. It's just real. Mm-hmm.
It's just what's so in my reality. It happens to be that that's not a mode that's working out. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I like that that's your example, because I think what I want to emphasize is that it needs to be like a small daily practice, which you did mention at the beginning, like the small steps and the small ways that you can bring surrender in is, well, maybe help me and people like me like get to that next step.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I said this actually, I just said this like earlier this week on an Instagram thing. It was like, we can take on something huge. Like we could take on a big surrender and yay, like take on anything huge for our well-being. And also like, it's actually huge to take on some daily thing that, albeit looks small, like we would again judge it that it is a small thing. We're saying, oh, in the grand, in the, you know, context of life and the importance of life, I'm taking this like thing that seems small. And the reality is it's not small because it's taking up so much space over here. Like,
wow. Yeah, true.
It is like these little things that we judge to be insignificant are taking up shocking amounts of our energy, our chi, our daily bank account of energy access. And then what are we left with is exhaustion. And who could surrender when they're exhausted?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I mean, or sometimes we have to be so exhausted that we finally surrender, but holy cow, we could get to it without having to do that. Amazing.
Right. That's the goal.
That would be amazing. So yeah, like, can I surrender about, and this is a big one for me because I'm very conscious of my physical environment is a big deal to me. And I'm sure that lots of people are feeling that way as we're sort of homed and we can't access other things. And depending on whether or not we live with an animal or a couple of people or a combination of those things, like we have maybe less control over how that environment feels right now. But it's like, does it matter how he puts the socks away and how I put the socks away? Like theoretically, no. Intellectually, no. Something in my body gets like super jammed up about that anyway, that like I fold the shirts differently, and it's like, it takes up a lot. It will take up a lot of space. Like we'll shut down in our chest or our belly, and then we can't surrender, and we can't be compassionate. We can't be humble, and we can't be like, thank you for folding my socks.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am also. So I think the first step is like, am I being judgmental? Oh, I am. Okay, that's interesting. Like, what is it true? Is it real? And can I be compassionate? And usually that's a digging into what's real is what is this person really up to? What am I really up to? And what judgment did I make about that? And is that fair? Probably not. You know, is that person doing their best? Probably. And if they're not doing their best, is that okay? Given what we know is happening in the context of everyone's world and the climate. And if I'm not doing my best, is that okay? Can I forgive myself for that for now? Like, I could have done better. I know how to do better. And I didn't. And like, I'm human. And in the moment, I tried to do my best. And, you know, then can we just extend that that love and compassion, which I think goes right into humility in a lot of ways, because they're not that far away from each other.
Right. Like quieting your ego, letting your ego go so that, yeah.
And if we're dealing, you know, at least as we are dealing with the outside world and meetings and reading the news and things, it's like, if someone's not doing their best, if that's like the discernment, not judgment that we've made, and it's no longer good for me, can I disengage with it? That's a compassionate thing to do, actually, is to disengage with it. That's one way to be compassionate instead of attempting to change it or fix it, is to actually surrender out, bow out. I'm out. This isn't working. You know, I think that can be a compassionate thing to do instead of continuing to send a fight.
Yeah, I just watched a clip about how like the rescuer in a victim triangle, it can also be the very like domineering. And so that surrendering that like role and giving someone else's problems like back to them, I see how that fits in.
Yeah. Which is actually, I've had it. Yeah, I think probably a lot of us have had experiences where we've, even out of love and wanting to be so, and still it's like, that's not mine. It's not my journey. My journey is to just send love so that that can change over there and or not change.
Right.
Who am I to say what it's supposed to be? That's a good point. That's a good one. Yeah, well, that brought me a good reminder of humility. That was a great example. I'm like, oh yeah. But and that's, I think the next thing is being humble. I think it's interesting because I haven't followed enough world news to know where else is happening, but you would know if it's happening in your neighborhood. But here in our neighborhoods, there's starting to be a lot of friction about, you know, when the economy is going to open again and how that's going to happen and which states are doing what about that. Are you having that too at all? Or
we're in a really lucky position here in Germany. Like things like some non-essential businesses opened up this week because like kind of our lockdown was successful enough, the medical care was successful enough, the just enforcement and everything was good enough that unfortunately not a lot of people got sick. So we're in a very different place than the US right now, from what I can tell.
I feel like humility is probably a good theme for that dissonant conversation that we find ourselves in here.
Interesting. And I wouldn't have put humility and surrender together without your insight. So thank you.
Oh, I'm like, oh, cool. It's yeah, that's really, how come? Say more about that. I think that's a really good, juicy thing.
I mean, surrender, again, like when I think about surrender, I think about the need to control things. And what pops up to me immediately isn't the ego. Though I can see, talking about it, of course, it becomes apparent, and I see the logic that you have there. But to me, surrender is about, it's about trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so complicated. Yeah, I just wouldn't have tied in the ego and humility with being able to get to a place of surrender. But I see how it is now, because of course, if you think that you're like God or you're like running the show, which is like the opposite of surrender, right? Then like, again, I see it now, but
Totally.
I hadn't put those two together before.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I want to hear about it, because I think I only came to these particular words out of my own stumbling through surrendering, right? And like how I had to deal with myself to get to that. So for me, yeah, the humility part, I mean, it's interesting, because it's like, I do think there's something about trust, and I love that you brought that up. And there's actually humility and trust, right? Because if I have to, I mean, it's like, if this is actually really sort of hilarious example, but in the Disney's Aladdin, how like in both the cartoon and live action, he's like, do you trust me? Like, get on, like, jump. Do you trust me? And how can I do that if I think I'm right all the time? How would I, not even right. I mean, not even only right, but how can we, without coming out of the I think, I believe, I'm right, I know, I've seen, my experience has told me, all of these things that are actually valuable in other places, just not in surrender, in a way. It's like, how can we give over to, the laws that the governor makes, or what a parent tells us, or how we deal with a partner, or what the doctor says, if we're like so committed to the I part of it instead of the we part. So I think that's the humility part, is like a coming back to that there's a lot, and maybe this is the helpful way for people to come to it. It's twofold. One is, what does everybody know that I may or may not know? Like, what's the collective, right? Like, where's the collective?
What do I know that I don't know, or what don't I know that I don't know? Yeah.
With others, what don't I know? And like a softening of a softening of my intellect around that. Actually, if for people this is actually really helpful, would be to like hand on heart, hand on chest, and like, oh my gosh, like rub your forehead, just like let it go down. Like we could just like gently brush the energy out of our brain space, like toward our heart, so that I can get back to what do we know, and what do we not know, and what do I know, and what do I not know, and how does that work together? Like, how does it do this? Like, how does it warm instead of sort of arguing with intellect? And then, is it about me? It's not always about me. That's a hard one, because it's survival, right? I mean, literally survival of the fittest. Like the first thing is that like I have enough food, I have a shelter, I am okay. And to say to the public, like, hey guys, it's about you, it's not about you, you know, that can really pluck some really painful strings for people, especially if they've had trauma in their background, because the body's memory of being concerned about surviving it will supersede what's happening up here. Like, we'll have panic or anxiousness or spontaneous sweating, or like the sort of the shakes, like the caffeine shakes, a lot of different physical symptoms. And that then desire to control what's happening outside of me is a direct result of feeling like I've lost control in here. And that can be a really hard one, to have to be like, oh, I can put some of my needs aside for the greater good right now. I mean, as far as we're talking about quarantine stuff, like, but anything, even just to surrender in general, is like, can I put some of my stuff aside? Can I do that peacefully in order to like see what's happening a little bit? Like, not that I'm excluded, but like I'm in the bowl with everyone. I'm not the only one in the bowl. So does that make sense?
Yeah, when you were talking, I pictured when you're doing like the head and heart connection thing, like I picture, and like the first step of just making space. So I pictured like kind of a space in our heart, and surrender was like this really fuzzy, cute cat that came in and like curled up, like could like curl up and like get really, just how peaceful like a sleeping cat is.
Love that.
Yeah, maybe I'll need to use that as a visual of like, that's the place I want to be. That's the feeling I want to have.
Yeah.
Even if logically I can't surrender, like I'm not. Yeah. If I can concentrate on the feeling I want to have of this like peaceful cat curling up in like my heart, and like everything's good.
I love that, because it actually happens here first, and then it will come back up to our thinking. It is the feeling into it. Oh, the peaceful. That's such a great visual. That's brilliant. I love that. It's because it is something that it does happen in the feeling of surrender is not going to be it's not, it will affect our thinking, but it happens down here. It will happen from those three centers we just talked about. It's going to happen in the body first, not the head will follow.
Right. I mean, that's maybe harder to describe or explain or teach, but it's definitely easier. I think it's easier for me to focus on the feeling.
Yeah.
And that's how it works anyway. So you can save yourself a lot of arguments in your mind if you just trust that you're going to get there.
It's so exhausting up there.
It's so exhausting. It's noisy. It's, it's loud. It's a lot of arguments. It's a lot of like things that aren't true.
That's why I think that question is like, is it true? Is it real? Is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's really noisy up there, and lots of us spend a lot of energy sort of sorting out truth and reality in our mind.
Yeah.
But it's a feeling. Surrender is, because what's happening right now is most of us is when we're not, here's just, it's like knowing we're not in surrender. It's like something happens, we read some piece of news, we get some information on a call, we look at the calendar and how long this has been going, whatever, and it's like there's suddenly like all this activity in our physiology, and as soon as that happens, we start making activity about what that means, and then very quickly what we tend to do in the sort of like Western mind is like we start thinking about what we're going to do about it, because we have to fix it and do something, and if I do something, then I'm in charge, and then it'll be fine because I can do my way through anything. And it's like, well, so then we're not in surrender, because we can actually come up with what to do about it from here, like to know if there's anything to do or nothing to do. But as soon as we let it rise up, it's like it's over. We have to kind of come back to start. It's like, let me come back to this, go back to start. You know, it's like if we were in Candyland, like you pick up the peanut brittle or the, I don't know, like the cavity tooth. Like, and that's okay. Like,
yeah,
it's okay. That's practice.
I like this idea where you just like cash in everything on the algorithm, just like take it. You're just gonna start all over again.
Because it's like it's a practice, and it's something that happens over and over again. And it's like I got totally caught up the other day in like, I don't even know, what did I get caught? I don't know. I was looking at the calendar. I was looking at this, like the state of our household, and I was like looking at other moving parts of like my email box, and I was like, like I just sort of like was, you know, and I was like hammering I'm like, we have to look at the calendar. We need a date for this thing. And then he was like, what? I'm like, I got to do this and I got to do this. And I was like, uh-oh. There we go. And then I had to like refresh, and it was faster than it's been in the past, where I kind of was like, oh, I'm not there. And like, this is what so is, we don't know. And let me just go back to start. Let me just like go back to start for a minute and like really look at the state of the world and the state of humanity, and like, you know, the things I'm grateful for in my life. And it was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, the things that actually I need about are like 50% of these things don't matter. 50% of them I checked in a calm body and was like, this one's actually a problem for me. And we can actually take some action on it, and it will move some of the like muck in my body and my mind if I move on those things gently. And 50% of this doesn't matter. And it was a symptom of having, you know, gotten back into thinking I'm in control and get to decide the outcome of all of the things. I hope I'm being clear. Am I being clear?
Yeah. This makes sense.
Yeah. So, and so, okay, worth and impermanence are the other two. So worth is, and I think this is really, I think this one is probably more about, well, no, it's in all the places actually. Who am I being, and how does that impact everybody in addition to me, and is it worth it? So worth it is forever. It's like so unique, I think.
Yeah.
To the person and like their life circumstance, like what we value and what's important. So I would never, it's so unique to each individual, each beloved. I happen to be like, I just like am really, really keenly aware of life and death. So when like the shit hits the fan in my internal universe, like I actually can walk myself back very far from like is it life and death? Like it really helps me. That's not everyone's motive force. So I don't expect that to be everyone's inspiration. But for me, it's a really helpful one, is to be like, okay, on the grand scheme of things, like, is this life and death, and where is it life and where is it death? Now, obviously, in the middle of a pandemic, we are talking about life and death. And people also may feel like not knowing what to do about summer care for their family feels like life and death, even if it's not, just because there's so much fatigue and stress. So there's an element of, you know, navigating into surrender. That's sort of like, what is this upset worth to me? Is it worth it to like stay in upset, or and how I'm being, is it worth the toll that will have on my relationship with my parents when I talk to them that way, or they talk to me that way, or I'm making it, it's like whoever,
right,
you know, with the way I'm behaving to my cat or dog. And you know, if we can really answer that question, like most of the time, not all the time, but like most of the time, we'll look at how we're being and we're like, whoa, I'm really I'm not like, that really isn't worth it. I thought it was like, I believed it with my whole self because I was in so much upset, but like, whoa, that's like not who I am committed to being for the sake of all beings on the planet and for the sake of the ones that matter the most to me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, my friend Amy Watching just commented that childcare can definitely put her in survival mode. So that's a real one.
that's
Yeah.
a real, really,
Yeah.
and there's also like this, it's like, I like to think of it like, I happen to have a candle on right now. It's like, like the wick or like the explosive device. It's like, it's got a string, and childcare can be like that, even for the kids we love so much. It's like, it's lit and we're like spending our energy and we're spending our energy. And like, oh my God, I don't have enough of myself. Oh my God, I don't know what to do about that. And then it's like, we just like get really impatient.
Right.
We explode.
Yeah. If you've already been home for 5 weeks, 6 weeks with them, you're thinking, how much longer
can I do it this way?
Yeah.
And it's really a hard one. That's hard. That's really hard. And it's like, again, it's not to replace the importance of that, because it is hard and real. Like, and parents are exhausted and kids are exhausted and emotionally taxed. And so it's not about saying, that's okay. Surrender is not, that's okay. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up.
It's just not.
Yeah.
It's surrender is not actually, it may be saying in the grandiose universe, everything is okay. But it may instill inside of that bowl. It doesn't mean that, not knowing how to handle being like a full-time parent constantly with no break is okay, like that we're okay. I don't mean that. It's about, it's going to be okay. And yeah, this thing isn't okay. Maybe there's something to do about that, but I can't get to how to really be and do about that until I like get to the, it's okay over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I don't know if this question makes sense, but I want to know what you do with it. Like, where do you put the thing that you need to let go of?
Oh, like, can we do an example? Because
Yeah.
I 8 ways to go about that. Do you have an example? If you, could be yours, could be anybody's.
I mean, let's say that I need childcare this summer.
Okay.
I've got a lot of, let's say, exhaustion, frustration, anger, all like that bundle that's coming with that, guilt about being angry about it.
Oh,
guilt of not loving your child enough to, whatever.
I've been there.
I don't have any kids, but
you're doing a brilliant job.
Yeah.
That rings true. And what do I do? So
where do I put those bundles of emotions? Like, if I need to let them go, is putting them somewhere also a form of control, where it's the same me playing out the like, I just make a box and put it on this shelf, and like, or can I put them somewhere to heal, or like, do I give them to somebody? Like
all of the things. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the first thing is so then the first question is, in the moment in time that I'm in, like as a moment, like as a breath of like a minute on the clock, can I deal with those now? So that would be the first question. So like,
right. Cause you have to give it space. And if you don't have the time to give it space.
Yeah. Like if I'm in the middle of cooking dinner and figuring out like somebody's Zoom classroom and I haven't eaten, like, is that the time to be like, let me be with my anger and frustration? That's not the time. And that would be so unfair to put on anyone that would be the time. It's like, no, in that moment, I do think visualizations are helpful. It's like, I have all this shit happening over here and it's a lot. And it's like, and I do this all the time and I'm like, okay, look, there it is. It's first of the thing is like, let me take it out of here for a second and like put it in my little made up bowl and be like, look at all that garbage in there. But I'm literally in the middle of like frying sausage and like
Right.
listening to too many cartoons. So now is not the time. So like I actually will say put them down, like visually put them down, or I keep post-it notes like all over the house. I mean, even in the middle of like frying eggs, you could totally like scribble on something and actually put whatever works for someone to put it down for a minute. It's not like we're going to ignore it. We're just being like, it would just be like a, like I'm not going to wash that pot of like like the soup got stuck. I'm just going to like not right now. So yes, put it down.
Okay.
Yes, put it down until there actually is time. And I'm going to say that in quote mark. Time.
Yeah. So Amy has just said, if the world is going to explode, it will be at dinner time.
Okay. Oh my God, best line ever. We should make bumper stickers. She's right. It totally will be at dinner time.
Or breakfast time or what, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, it's like meal time. It's basically all the like big markers of the day. All the big markers of the day. I think all parents right now or any caregivers are like, is the fault line moving? Or will it be the next big marker of the day? So yeah, she's right. Yeah, so dinner time isn't the time to be like, hey kids, can we talk about our feelings? Because mommy's really frustrated. That's not the time. It's, put it aside for a minute and like pour a glass of wine or, or I do some jumping jacks is actually really helpful. That can be done in the kitchen.
Ooh,
just
jumping jacks.
The energy. Because it's like, I can say, I mean, if I'm in the middle of being like, if all my emotions have gotten that bundled up and I'm like in it, all of us, especially me, will be like so committed to that's real. I'm like, I gotta talk to them about it right now. This is like right now. It feels so urgent because suddenly we're in survival mode. So the first thing is to like notice that we're in survival mode. Put it down, write it down, put it away. And then, it might actually be like, let me just wash my hands of that. Like, let me wash it down the drain so I could just like have whatever, 5 seconds to like pull myself back into something else or some jumping jacks. Like I'm a fan of, I like wipe it off. I'll like jump and like be like, okay, like I'm annoyed, I'm angry, I'm exhausted. Like we'll deal with that later. Right now, my kid is screaming and also we're hungry. Like I have to figure out how to be with that. I also will walk away. Sometimes I just have to walk away into like the bathroom when it's dark for a second and just be like, okay, just like, okay, let me like visually like dig into my, like treasure pot of energy that's like buried in some very deep
the reserves that all mothers have.
Yeah, and just be like, scoop. I just need a little scoop of that to deal with this until bedtime. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, which, and I mean, that's surrendering.
It is. Well, that is it. It's right there. That's the whole thing is being like, okay. And by the way, like even tell you, it's like, I'm like sweating right now because I've had so many of those days. Like I can feel it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a real.
It's true. And so it's that. And then, but the key is that later we do come back to it. So, because we cannot continue to go back to start and surrender and never process those emotions or honor them. And when I say process, I mean like honor that they're there. It's okay to be mad and it's okay. We don't want it to get stuck. So it might mean actually like foregoing sleep to sit by myself at midnight watching a movie that I can like cry it all out to, or journaling, or like calling a friend in a different time zone who actually like I can vent to. And it may mean, because that may not be available at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or wherever somebody is, it might be like that we trade some time from somewhere else in order to do it, or we make a request. If we're lucky enough to have someone else in the house to help us with that we make a very clean request about it. Like, buddy, I'm about to totally lose my shit. Like I can't get it back. And like, you're on bedtime and I'm taking a shower and then calling my sister, or like,
Yeah. Like code words are like safe words are good, right? Especially right now.
Yeah. And if and not, and a lot of people are doing things solo, and so then what, and the solo parenting, solo caretaking, being solo, just I'm me by myself in my apartment or whatever. It's a totally different thing because there's no one to pass a baton to. And so then it's like, well, how do we do that? So, but it's the same thing. It may actually, in some ways, it may be, I can't be on that call for work because I have to get my mental house in order. And I think that's okay. I think that's like a totally, and it may actually be in the case of someone who's single track parenting or completely single parenting, it's like, it may be like everyone will be okay if this happens. I want to say for real, it's like a bowl of cereal and some applesauce and an iPad or a TV, and it's like, you sit there, this is your dinner, see you later, I need a minute. That's like totally okay.
Yeah. And this is a surrender. You're letting go of the judgment about it. You're like making space for what's the priority here. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, because everyone will be okay if it was like the 8th day of cereal for dinner. It's not, none of us want that, but like, we'll be okay. That's okay. Right. Everyone wants something, and we'll get our brains out of mush later from all that screen time. It's fine. It's not ideal, but that's what's necessary.
Right.
And that's okay, because that's like what's necessary is more important than trying to do it some other way.
Yeah.
Once we deal with once we've had the opportunity to like cry it out, yell it out, journal it out, vent it out to a friend, and the emotion moves all the way or enough of the way, then there will be some quiet to actually be like, now can I have a moment of peace? Then later, let's really think about what's going to happen over summer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's where the alchemy happens. Like, you give it space, you jump it out, journal it out, talk it out, cry it out, move it out. Mm-hmm. And then the flip happens between it being like guilt, anger, frustration.
I think so.
To thinking that we're back in control again. No, I mean, like.
Yeah, but there's some peace. And so, but then we can hear, because when we're like in it, it's like, I got to do something about that. And I got to go like, it's almost like I see it as an energetic, like, if you're looking, it's like looking at it this way, like bugs, like they're like this, versus like, oh, like, holy cow, like, no wonder I'm so angry. I'm so freaking tired. I am also tired of eating cereal. I don't know, making, and I'm angry that this is happening, and I'm angry that I don't know what to do about it. And maybe there's also something that quite truthfully, like, needs some attention, and like partnership, or like how my kids are being, or how I'm being, or like our finances, or whatever. So, but then there will be something that comes out of here. Like, it won't be like this, I've got to go find summer plans. It'll be like,
what summer plan wants to reveal itself to me today?
Yeah. And it'll be like, maybe I have to do some internet research. Right. A little, not too much. Maybe I'll realize that, like, oh, like, if I wait a week, I can wait a week. It's not as urgent as I thought. Right. Feels urgent.
Yeah. And this is coming from fear or coming from love, is how I would also describe what you're saying these two places are. Amy's saying that the conversation's making her feel more sane. So thank you both for sharing your thoughts and experiences. And I love your holistic, the whole Chinese medicine and holistic approach, and how it's a full body experience. That's your gift.
Thank you. I love it. I think it's like, it saved me. That's why I love it so much, because it's like, it taught me taught me that what I was experiencing in my emotional realm and my physical realm and my spiritual realm, like, weren't happening by accident against or next to each other, but that like it's all the same thing. And that helps me pay better attention and honor what is true, honor what is true, and not sort of commit to what I decided was real that isn't real.
Yeah. And I would say yes, and replace that with like the surrender thing. Like I would also like give up what I thought was a known certainty, you know, for this surrendering. Yeah.
Well, that is the big one.
Yeah. Because of course there aren't any known certainties.
There really aren't. And that's it's really that is a really confronting thing. It's very confronting. It's one of the things that will have everyone just jump so fast out of it into like this mode that I was just playing. It's like, because uncertainty is, for most of us, an incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, it's so confronting. It's terrifying. Right. It's so hard.
Yeah, again, bigger for me than like my shadow self or like.
I mean, I do think because you had, asked me this before, it's like our trust and surrender are the same. And it's like, yes and no, because like one begets the other. Like they're like definitely like,
oh, okay.
Right? Like one, okay, if I have trust, I can surrender. And when I surrender, I can see that there was trust all along. And I do think
okay.
Like, I think in some ways they're the same, and in some ways they create each other.
Yeah.
And in some ways they actually block each other, right? Like just like yin and yang, actually.
I was just gonna say like yin and yang.
I know, right? They transform into one another, they create one another, they're the opposite of one another. So it's like, yeah, but like if I don't have trust, can I surrender? I don't think so. Also, if I figure out how to override that, can I then see that there was trust, or can I find it again? Probably.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I mean, they're so connected, but that's why uncertainty is so scary.
Yeah. I feel like trust, I just got another visual. We can talk all day about this because I'm getting lots of good visuals. You're speaking your truth. Truth is our trust. I picture it's like when you're really filled up, like you're full, satiated. Every like cell and part of you is full. Totally. And surrender is when you're completely empty.
Ooh, that's interesting. There is a nothingness in it. I think that they can exist at the same time, and not at the same time, because actually the first time that I truly surrendered, I was like legit, like medically empty. Like, so it's an interesting visual. That was like when I learned how, I was like, oh, okay. Turns out I'm not in charge at all. Isn't that funny? So yeah, there's something to that.
Yeah, and that emptiness is scary, which is how we started this conversation.
Emptiness is scary. I think, but actually yin and yang is interesting, right? Because for anyone who's not as familiar with it as you and I are, there's always yang within yin, and there's always yin within yang. So if we're saying, let's say emptiness, let's equate it with darkness and uncertainty, because that's typically like most of us go there. We're not seeing like lots of light, we're seeing like total darkness. But there's always a star somewhere. I mean, we may have to like really look for the moon. We may have to really look for like the lightning bug or the crack of light under the door. It's somewhere. And that, it's like, it's like look for the light. That's one way to kind of hang out in the darkness. Not to like look for it too hard, but in a way, one actually physical thing people can do when they're in their own, like when I'm in a fight with myself about this, is to like get our feet on the floor if we can, and like open our chest back up, because we tend to cave in when we're concerned about what is certain and what is not certain. Understandably, it's very protective. We're very smart that way. Bodies are so smart that way. And the whole thing is actually, well, if I don't have trust and I don't know how to surrender and I want to have the ability to, I'm going to have to drop my shoulders back and open my chest back up.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I'm going to have to let my heart be the light that shines into the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that this won't always be like this.
Yeah, and it brings some power back into you, right? Where you feel like you're okay, maybe not in control, but you're not a complete like victim.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, Rachel, we've talked for an hour already.
It just went.
It totally just went. And I could keep talking, but I feel like we
did it.
We've shared a lot of good things. You did. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your time and your gifts. I love if I can't make room for the little cat that's gonna curl up, just making space, breathing, jumping, shaking it off, and trusting that there is a light there eventually.
There's a light there.
There is. There really is. There always is. I think that's the part of trust that's in surrender.
It is. And it's also knowing that like we don't know, because we don't know what comes next. What if it's amazing what comes next?
Yes.
Like, wow, like the possibility of that is not just, oh my God, what happens next? It's like, what happens next?
Yeah. Okay, so when my prayer has been like letting go of the how, one of the quotes that I tell myself over and over again that someone said, I don't even know who, it is the universe is not that predictable or that boring. Whatever we thought would be the outcome or what we wanted to get, the universe is never that predictable or boring. So
I love that. I love that.
Something better.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm going to share a link to how to sign up to your newsletter.
Great.
Website, because I think if anybody can make space for some more of this, it's just worth it. And it's a free newsletter. And you can also do some telework, which is amazing with your services too. So I hope people find you and want a more holistic approach from everything you offer. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Mwah.
Mwah.